Let's enter weird showbiz history.
He came and he went. And in between, nothing.
There's something troubling you about the world. I'd like to know what it is.
I wouldn't expect happiness, I don't.
The tears of a clown adage is overused, but this is a trope arguably created by Britain's first TV superstar comedian. No one had ever risen so high and just fell so dramatically. Insecurity, ambition, and a desperate need for any control. So how did this comedy titan turn into a cautionary tale, etched into the history of British entertainment? This is the heartbreaking story about the collapse of Tony Hancock. Born in 1924 in Smethwick, he was raised in a pub. His parents weren't just publicans, they were also performers. Therefore, young Tony practically breathed grease paint and applause. By his teen, he was the lad himself, a local variety star, crafting his signature brand of self-deprecating wit. After wartime service, trading bombs for jokes, Hancock entered the comedy game.
Fortunately, at that time, there was a sort of captive audience lying around in various ACAC sites all over a lot of troops to be entertained, and they didn't have much entertainment, and they didn't see anybody, fortunately, so I worked off all the rubbish on them in the early days. She was very fortunate.
I'll have scampi with mayonnaise, a bottle of Burgundy 48, a rare steak, stewed onions, and a sprinkling of asparagus. Good luck.
Radio gigs, building a name, but the real magic happened in 1954, joining forces with comedy gold, Ray Galton and Alan Simpson. These guys were sitcom pioneers, injecting relatable characters and real-life situations into the traditionally contrived world of British comedy.
We said no funny voices, no catchphrases.
They joined forces for Hancock's Half Hour, which exploded, with groundbreaking writing, observational humour like never before. The true brilliance was Anthony Aloysius Hancock, a pretentious, pathetic, eternally unlucky resident of 23 railway cuttings, East Cheam.
We'll see who's the loser in the long run.
Ah, stop moaning. It's your pride, that's all. It's been nagging away at you ever since you found out I was an OBE.
OBE?
Yeah, Order of the British Empire.
Bill, you were ordered out of the British Empire.
I don't want that.
Did you handle it?
Certainly not. The last thing I'd handle is mince and beans.
What's wrong with it?
I just don't like mince and beans, that's all. I can't recall the time I did like mince and beans. I'm just not a mince and beans man, that's all it is. It may seem an unreasonable hatred to you, but that's the way things are.
The show leapfrogged to TV in 1956, reaching every home in Britain.
Good evening. I've been asked to tell you something about my television show, which you'll be seeing over the next few months.
Too much on my mind, you see. Nuclear warfare, future of mankind, China, Spurs.
Alongside him, Sid James, the scheming, street-smart foil to Hancock's pomposity, the perfect comedy duo.
This palatial room you see around me will become quite familiar to you. The lounge of my house. Well, at least it'll be mine in another 25 years if I last that long. Well, that's it then. Hancock's Half Hour is the name. Give it a go. You never know, it might be a gill. Beauty.
He wasn't just a comedian, he was the lad himself. Hancock's Half Hour, it wasn't just a TV sitcom, it was a national obsession. It was the voice of post-war Britain.
Does Magna Carta mean nothing to you? Did she die in vain?
Viewing figures skyrocketed. Hancock was a household name.
Hancock's Half Hour.
Awards, acclaim, and the undying love of the British public.
How's it going?
Oh, marvellous, mate. We've got an epic here. Just wait till I finish joining it together. I've had a couple of... I've had a couple of bits out.
However, there were cracks that were starting to form.
Half an hour before, he would lock himself in his dressing room, but yet insist to be on his own. And if you were anywhere near, you could hear him inside with dry heaves, with just out of sheer nerves. And then he'd emerge, and the minute it started, once he was on stage, he was fine.
Being the wife of a great entertainer, do you find him temperamental? Do you have to soothe his brow when he comes back, or?
That's put you in a spot, isn't it? Good. Go on.
Now let's say something.
Hancock's ego, always present, began to inflate. He started believing that he was the sole reason for the show's success, dismissing contributions of Galton and Simpson, and even Sid James.
Well, I hope you like the shows. As he told you, I'm his best friend. But if during the course of this series you find that you like me better than him, don't hesitate to write in and say so, because I'm off to show my own.
As you will have guessed, his loyalty to me is one of the outstanding features of this series.
Hancock feared that him and Sid were starting to be seen as a double act. He was insecure that he was being propped up by Sid, but he wanted to prove that he could be a star on his own merit. So in 1959, he had Sid James fired.
I would have liked to have gone on for one more series, but only one. And I was very upset, naturally, when he said, well, we've got to break it up now. We've got to make a clean cut. And I said, well, if that's the way it's got to be, that's the way it's got to be.
Anyway, we should be around, we're actually very good friends. If you do see some athletes, come and say hello.
Sid was terribly upset. I mean, he was so hurt because it came out of the blue. Tony never said anything. As far as Sid was concerned, they were great friends, but Tony obviously had the ability, which he did, was to cut people off.
Hancock lost the character that grounded him, and more importantly, in real life, a friend who kept him sane.
I think he really was the greatest friend I ever had. And very often, Tony sort of treated me like a father almost, you know.
Well, hello. I expect you're pretty excited, eh? Oh, there's not much to me after writing the words and the music and doing the dances and making the costumes. Well, you feel pretty sure, you know.
The power dynamic of the show was shifting even harder. Hancock began demanding more control, rewriting lines, injecting his own ideas, often to the detriment of the comedy. But let's not forget the character was misanthropic, pompous, full of airs and graces above his station. The joke was always on him. He was a Larry David prototype. But art started to imitate life. Being lauded as a genius, it swelled his ego.
Yeah. Where does an artist like me have to go to be accepted? Must be somewhere.
But he wanted to be more than just a comedian. He wanted to be known as a very serious artist. So when he was offered the chance to appear on a prestigious interview, he jumped at the opportunity. His soul was to be laid bare for the entire country to witness.
He came to rehearsal one morning and he said, you just won't believe it, but I have been asked to do Face to Face with John Freeman. So we all said, God, that's marvellous, isn't it? But you won't do it. And he said, no, I won't do it, but it's bloody marvellous. I mean, he's asked me, hasn't he? You know, he's done prime ministers and he's fancy asking me. He couldn't get over it.
Face to Face, hosted by John Freeman, was notorious for its unflinching, brutal approach. Freeman wasn't interested in pleasantries. He wanted to always get to the heart of the matter. And in 1960, he set his sights on Tony Hancock. The interview started innocently.
You know you're on your own, you're without your scriptwriters.
Yes.
And you'll tell us the truth.
I'll try to.
Do you like talking about yourself or not?
Yes, up to a point, particularly in relation to what I do.
But Freeman began to delve deeper.
I noticed looking through what's been published about your career that there's a bit of obscurity about this, but it seems as if 3 times in recent years you've had some sort of a breakdown in health. Is this true? Is your health a bit ropey?
Freeman asked about his deepest fears.
Do you read the criticisms about yourself?
Reluctantly, yes.
Do they hurt?
Yes, they do, actually. I try and eliminate that, but it's not possible.
Do you, as a matter of fact, sleep well when you go to bed?
No.
Do you take sleeping pills?
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you sleep, do you think?
Well, I think that in these days of the challenge of this particular medium, anyway, your mind works high, quick. You are permanently on an edge, a good one, I think. And therefore, it is difficult to relax while a thing is on, while a show is on. But No, generally not particularly well.
questioning his insecurities, his ambition, and his perceived arrogance.
Do you in fact get a kick out of your anxiety?
Anxiety. Would you explain it a bit more?
Hancock, initially composed, became increasingly agitated and defensive.
Looking back on your first 35 years, jolly straight question, are you happy or not?
I've been very fortunate, I think, and I have everything that that anybody could want to make them happy. But wait a minute, I haven't finished it. I was going to say that the only happiness I could achieve would be to perfect the talent that I have, whatever it may be, however small it may be. That is the whole purpose of it, and that is the whole purpose of what I do.
Then the dam broke.
Something appears to me, even at the end of this conversation, to be eating you. You say that your happiness is just ahead of you still. There's something troubling you about the world. I'd like to know what it is.
I wouldn't expect happiness. I don't think that's possible.
He struggled to maintain his composure. The camera zoomed in, capturing every flicker of emotion, every sign of distress.
You've got cars that you don't drive. You've got health, which you tell me is a bit ropey because you find you find it so difficult to learn your lines. You've got money that you can't really spend. You worry about your weight.
I spend the money. I do. I enjoy it.
Well, what I want to put to you as a final question is this. You could stop all this tomorrow if you wanted to. You're rich enough to coast along for the rest of your days. Now,
money is of no account in this.
Well, tell me why you go on.
Because,
Tell me why you go on as a last answer.
Because it absolutely fascinates me, because I love it, and because it is my entire life.
Viewers were shocked at the level of emotion on display, the vulnerability. No one was used to seeing a comedian so distraught. Viewers weren't used to seeing someone on screen so emotional, especially Tony Hancock. The public could now see that the Hancock TV character was incredibly close to his own actual personality. So now, it was going to be harder to laugh at him because, I don't know, he just seems so sad. This interview was a turning point. It marked the beginning of his public unraveling, the start of a downward spiral that would ultimately lead to his tragic demise. The interview laid bare the insecurities and contradictions that would ultimately consume him. Now, one particular episode, The Blood Donor, remains a masterclass in comedic timing, considered one of the greatest sitcom episodes of all time.
Came in here in all good faith to help me country. I don't mind giving a reasonable amount, but a pint, that's very nearly an armful. I don't mind that much, but I'm not owing it up to here.
Looked at from a different perspective, however, this episode was the start of a decline into professional negligence. He was involved in a serious car accident, which impaired Hancock's ability to memorize lines.
Drink a pint of milk a day.
He blamed it on the accident, but I also think that he was then beginning, perhaps, to drink too much.
Leading to a reliance on teleprompters, effectively replacing script memorization.
And that was the worst mistake he made in his entire life. He didn't have to learn the lines, and he found, which has always been a problem for him. And suddenly, this problem was lifted off his shoulders, and he could just read the lines.
This dependence ultimately diminished his ability to connect with his fellow actors and create on-screen chemistry.
You can't go through life with your head buried in the sand.
No man is an island.
You're right. There I agree. Necessity is the mother of invention.
It certainly is.
His insecurities increased, wanting to be a star solely on his own merit. He saw Hancock's half hour as an albatross. It was now hindering his ability to break free and be considered a serious dramatic actor. So how would he become an international star? Ray and Alan wrote a movie for Tony called The Rebel.
I think if he was ever going to be international, he was never going to do it on television. Being international means going well in America, being accepted by the Americans. And there was no way it was going to happen on television.
What's this horrible thing?
That is a self-portrait.
Who of?
Laurel and Hardy. Who of the food.
It did all right, but in Tony's eyes, he was now a Hollywood star, and a Hollywood star deserves better writers.
You've no idea how frustrating it is to work with people of no imagination.
Well, The Rebel has had some very good reports indeed, some good press, and we're looking forward to seeing it. Are you happy about it yourself?
Yes, more or less, I think.
Well, on those...
there's always something, you know, one say, but yes, I hope so. Go and see it anyway.
Done enough, kid. Oh, that's me, is it? That's a complete assessment of my talents, is it? A funny hat, a funny coat, and Hancock's half hour.
He grew resentful of Galton and Simpson's perceived influence.
They've taken over!
The situation reached boiling point in 1961.
There are certain things I'd like to get away from now, really. They're difficult to talk about and impossible to talk about, really. But gradually you do pull away from... you try and throw away the rubbish. I mean, it accumulates all the time, and you try and throw it away and come down to what is really your own personality. In other words, you spend most of the time discarding, not gathering.
A terrible slap in the face. I think it was a very dramatic meeting.
The decision to fire Galton and Simpson was a bombshell. The comedy world was stunned. Why throw away a winning formula? He claimed he wanted to explore new avenues, tackle more serious roles. But Galton and Simpson, they weren't asked. They moved on straight away to create another iconic sitcom, Steptoe and Son, a show which further highlighted the magnitude of Hancock's loss.
The papers did what the papers always do. They became bored writing week after week, Tony Hancock is the greatest, Tony Hancock is brilliant. So one week someone said, is it Hancock or is it his supporting cast? Whereupon Hattie went and Kenneth Williams went and Bill Kerr went. And another year passed, and then who is the real funny man, said the papers. Is it Tony or is it Sid? And Sid went. And then it was Galton and Simpson, and they went. He threw away his insurances because he wanted people to know that he was the one. And he was the one. He was the keystone of the bridge. But you have to have some other stones in the bridge if you're going to get over it.
Hancock.
Without them and Sid, the spark was gone. The new show, simply called Hancock, struggled. The nuanced characterization and witty dialogue, they were now replaced by self-indulgent writing and a noticeable lack of comedic timing, marred by both inebriation and also his unwillingness to memorize lines.
Ho, ho, ho. Any little child want to buy a dolly?
Critics savaged the show, and viewing figures plummeted. The failure of Hancock triggered a downward spiral.
Paper said, I used to go and pick the papers up from him in the morning, and he was always marvellous. He was a great fan, you see. And we did one show, and we thought it was a little, not bad. He was always
not good.
Fair. And I went round to him, and he's so enthusiastic about everything all the time, and he just gave me the papers, and he didn't say anything, he just took the money, and he looked at me and he said, what happened last night then? This is the worst sort of criticism, because I knew that nobody could have been more for me than him, and if he didn't like it, then things had collapsed.
He became difficult to work with, plagued by self-doubt and fueled by alcohol.
What do I say?
Yes, I've been drinking.
Yes, I've been drinking. And it seems to have affected my memory.
He alienated colleagues, directors, even close friends. He attempted to resurrect his career with various projects, including the poorly received film The Punch and Judy Man. Surprisingly, a story based around a seaside Punch and Judy show wasn't enough to crack the American market, and the film bombed. Even more personally devastating, those he had shunned in the past had now eclipsed him. Hattie Jacques, Kenneth Williams and Sid James enjoying far greater prominence on television and in movies. Galton and Simpson now reveling in the colossal success of Steptoe and Son. While all his old colleagues were enjoying success after success, Tony had had disappointment after disappointment, and his career was in a steep decline.
The stress of television, does this still trouble you? No, not anymore. But of course, it's the same as people say on a film set. There's no excitement. Of course it is when they say, right, bring the doors down, everything goes down, everything gets quiet, the sound, right, thing. Then some gentleman of 17 with a lot of pimples goes crash in front of your face like this. Like, please don't do that. And then it's post action, and it's all there, and down and finished, and print, and you think, what happened?
His personal life was equally turbulent. His volatile marriage had failed, and in 1965 he remarried to Freddie Ross, who tried tirelessly to keep him from his demons.
Well, after all, it's the sort of thing that happens only 8 or 9 times in your life. I think she must be here.
But to no avail. He remained in the grip of alcohol addiction, disappearing on binges for days, and it took a savage toll on his health.
Did you know he was a drunk when you married him?
Yes, because I'd been living with him. What a brave thing to say 20 years ago.
In the summer of 1966, he tried reviving his flagging career by hosting The Blackpool Show, a variety series.
Well, there'll now be a 2-minute silence for my ovation.
But his weak material and evident discomfort as an MC suggested that he was out of his depth.
And here is an English comedian, Freddie Davis. I should never have got mixed up with a variety show. The critics are right, of course I should have done.
His unhealthy appearance and awkwardness, exacerbated by a blatant dependence on cue cards, it painted a real picture of gross unpreparedness.
That was nasty. I had one of my turns there. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is almost goodbye for me to the Blackpool Show, because next week Bruce Forsyth will be taking over.
And I say goodbye to the Blackpool Show, which would hereupon be known as the Blackpool Incident. Goodbye.
Compounding these issues, he missed one episode due to what was publicly cited as stomach trouble, while in reality, he lay sedated in a nursing home. This, combined with the negative press surrounding his wife's hospitalization in a coma after a deliberate overdose. This only solidified the public's perception of him as a troubled and faded star.
I remember you saying not so long ago that you think bad times are perhaps essential for performers like yourself. Well, they seem to be unavoidable, essential. They'll get you some way.
Tony was increasingly desperate to reclaim his former glory. He tried everything. His final throw of the dice, a prestigious one-man show at the Royal Festival Hall. Stricken with fear that the event would prove a disaster, he obsessed over every detail. His usual feelings of depression, his drinking and self-doubt, they were now at an all-time worst. Panicking, he reached out to old friends and colleagues that he'd callously dismissed. Galton and Simpson, Kenneth Williams, hoping they'd help to rescue his career, but they vigorously declined. When the event began, there was an immediate sense that it was going to be a depressing occasion. An unexpected hour-and-a-half opening act, Marion Montgomery, she sang through technical difficulties, while an angst-ridden Hancock sitting in his dressing room was vomiting in his sink, drinking his way through a whole bottle of brandy. When it was finally time for the lad himself to appear, Hancock appeared emaciated and strained. The show that followed was poorly structured and confusing, leaving the audience unsure whether to laugh at the intended tragicomedy or simply lament the tragedy.
Here, here's a cracker, one for the teenagers. George Arliss. What do you mean, never heard of him? He's only been dead 40 years.
His worst impersonation that night was of Tony Hancock in his prime. The audience worked hard to respond warmly to his efforts, but he knew that on stage at the festival hall, that the magic, his magic, had well and truly dissipated.
Why do you
by that, this is where resilience becomes more important than talent, without any question. And I think if you can emerge with, from that with a little more knowledge and also a pretty good rethink about what and why things went wrong.
Well, this time next week I shall be in the sun, leaving all you lot here, shivering away in the snow and the smog. Yes, Australia, here I come.
You're going to Australia?
Yes, that's right. I'm getting out of all this lot.
In 1968, with his UK career crumbling, Hancock sought a lifeline in Australia, accepting an offer to develop a new TV series there. Working in Australia often signalled a career in decline, usually reserved for performers nearing retirement. Hancock was only in his early 40s, but he brushed aside this perception, envisioning Australia as a land of opportunity where he could reinvent himself and leave behind his past.
Welcome. Welcome.
During filming, Hancock's new beginning was seemingly yet again a pale imitation of his former self. He became increasingly isolated and withdrawn. Professionally and personally, he was all washed up, and seemingly there was little hope the situation was reversible.
And here I am, all alone in this miserable hotel, with tropical sun beating a tattoo on the roof. It's all surf and seaweed here.
There were reports of him wandering the streets of Sydney in a drunken stupor, muttering incoherently to himself. Under pressure from network executives, he was mandated to rehab with the ultimatum of immediate termination should he relapse. Despite his efforts to stay sober, a mounting fear and inner conflict drove him to isolate himself in his run-down apartment, effectively shutting out the world.
And if such a time came that I found that I'd come to the end of what I could develop out of my own ability, or limited however it may be, then I wouldn't want to do it anymore.
On June the 25th, 1968, Tony Hancock was found dead in his Sydney apartment. He'd taken a fatal overdose of sleeping pills and vodka. He was only 44 years old. A suicide note found in the apartment contained a chillingly simple message. Things just seemed to go wrong too many times.
You lost your chance, me old son. You contributed absolutely nothing to this life.
The last time Sid James saw his one-time comedy partner was just months before his death. He told an interviewer he was driving down Piccadilly when he spotted a disheveled Hancock stumbling along the pavement.
I'll never forget, I was driving down Piccadilly one day, and I saw Tony standing on a traffic island, and he looked quite dreadful. Quite dreadful. So I was down Piccadilly, and I tried to pull up and get over and see him. He really looked so miserable and so... Oh, God, I keep applying the word desperate to Tony because this is... I got the car parked, and then I stopped, I pulled up, but then he disappeared, and I didn't see him again. That's the last time I saw him. He didn't see me. Wish to God I had been able to catch him that day. You know, all sorts of little things can change people's lives.
Tony's story is a sobering reminder of the fragility of fame, the destructive nature of ego, and the importance of mental health. In conclusion, Tony's legacy is both complex and contradictory. He remains a towering figure in British comedy, and his influence is still felt today. But his story, it also serves as a cautionary tale that even the brightest of stars could be consumed by their own darkness.
If in the past few weeks we've managed to bring you some happiness, some laughter, perhaps even a few tears, then we are humbly satisfied. For you, the audience, are our masters. Your applause is our reward. It says here.
What's your opinion on this tragic story? Please comment below.